Chair, ladies and gentlemen, my father was a press baron. He was a veritable media tycoon. For my father wrote this, for those at the back, the County Echo and City Chronicle, this most tyrannical of publications. Now, the readership was pretty small, but that's not what is important. For my father, what was important was that writing this gave him a little bit of power. And as we know, with power comes responsibility. And for him, it was a responsibility to give balanced news, to give interesting, important news. And those are challenges for our papers. And I want to think a little about that this afternoon. Let's have a look at some of the cutthroat journalism my father dealt with on a regular basis. How about angry meeting over parking? Or inconclusive findings over big cat killing? Now ask yourselves, ladies and gentlemen, which would you like to know more about? The debate in the council chamber, or that strangely slain sheep? I'm reckoning it's probably about the sheep, isn't it? And that's the problem. That's the difficulty. Our papers have to sell, they have to be entertaining, but we also want them to give us substance. And the trouble is, most people are more intrigued to read about big cats and mutilated mammals. So, I'm not entirely sure our press is getting this balance right at the moment. I fear that at times, some papers are more interested in the grabbing headline, the punchy news story, than the relevant and the interesting. And worse still, I'm not even sure some of our papers know the difference. So one of the problems I think papers face is that of bias and balance. Well, how about our beloved County Echo? Surely it couldn't be guilty of such crimes. Well, I refer you, ladies and gentlemen, to page 10, and the lovely little story about the successful book signing in a local shop. What could be wrong about that? A local author, a local shop. It all sounds fine, doesn't it? Until you ask yourselves, who run the local bookshop? My mother. Corruption, bias. And is this not a problem for our press? Hopefully they're not quite as blatant in their favouritism. But that issue of balance is very important. We know often which side of the story our papers will take. They are so entrenched in their views that we know how they will report something before we even pick that paper up. That cannot be healthy. So my father has retired, and I can see you all wondering, what could have brought down this mighty media mogul? Well, for him, it was that the County Echo was brought out by a larger newspaper, a larger organisation who were buying up lots of small papers. Suddenly people 70 miles away were telling him to write more about big cats than about parking problems. And whilst I'm teasing him, my father was a good journalist. He wanted to write the interesting stories. And so he didn't like the new direction. And what would be the impact on our press if it was being brought out by a larger news organisation? What if lots of papers were falling under the power of one group? Would that be healthy? Would that be good? How much power would the individual who owned those papers have? Just consider, for instance, if my father was the person buying out all those newspapers, what would be the impact on the book trade? So, ladies and gentlemen, this little tale might make you think that I'm sort of a bit down on the press, maybe negative about its future. But actually, that isn't the case at all. I think our press is incredibly important. I think we only have to look at countries where things are less free, where the press has less freedom, to be grateful for what we have. And if we think about the future, I'm also positive. And one of the reasons I'm positive is the internet. My father, and this is the last of my very tenuous connections, my father couldn't write whatever he liked because of local gossip. It curtailed his power. And I think that Facebook and Twitter and all these things, which personally I don't understand, are our national gossip. They have the power to curtail our press in the same way. They can restrict what it says and allow us to question it. So to you all, ladies and gentlemen, I say two things. Go out, and if you get a chance, buy a copy of the County Echo. It's a great newspaper. But secondly, and perhaps more importantly, I think we have a responsibility to be good consumers of the press. And by that, I mean broad consumers. We should take in as much media as we possibly can. Go out tomorrow and buy a different paper. Choose the paper with the most boring headline. And use the internet. Use all those other resources, those other ways to check the stories we're getting, to listen to other media outlets. For I think if we do that, ladies and gentlemen, we'll use our responsibility to give us power. A power to demand that our press is balanced. And a power to demand that our press is free, broad, and relevant. If we do that, ladies and gentlemen, we get the best from our press. And only then will we be sure that we are truly reading all about it.